Welcome, welcome. I think I'm doing this right. I don't know. I'm trying. It's my first time hosting a space, and I'm really glad that y'all are going to be able to join us tonight. I have invites out to Chasten and Rep Rayner. Hi, Rep.
Hi, Brandon. I am here.
Welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Folks, if you're joining in, thank you for being here. We're just going to let some folks filter in. Really excited about a conversation tonight. Um, Also excited that this is my very first Twitter space. So let's get people in here. I just sent an invite to Nadine to join us. Hi, Nadine. Good to see you.
Good to see you, or at least your head there. Hey, Rep.
Hey, I see that Chasten is on too.
He is. I think he texted me and said he's just finishing up some things, so I'll try to put him last.
Hi, Brandon. Thanks for
Nadine.
hosting us.
Hi, Chasten. Great to see you.
Nice to hear you.
Yeah, these are lovely. It means I don't have to like get all dolled up.
Listen, I had the kids all day today, and I'm very glad that you can't see me right now.
This is great. We're just going to let folks filter in a little bit more. I know we've got Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith joining us as well. So just going to keep my eyes peeled. I also saw that he's joining Rachel Maddow. So lots happening tonight.
Yes, because we have to expose these horrible, horrific bills. Welcome to Florida.
Yes, we do. That is our job. We got to shine sunlight. It is the best disinfectant. I see our friends from GLAD. Thank you so much for making it tonight. I see lots of Pete logos, which we love. We love having representation in positions of leadership. All right, I think we have everybody. Rep Smith, good to see you on here as well. Thank you for joining us. I think you're here. Well, anyhow, before we get started with our conversation, I just want to welcome everybody. Please, by all means, feel free to share this with folks. We want as many people on as we can. We want folks to be able to tune in, and really looking forward to a conversation. For those who are new to Twitter Spaces, welcome. Glad to have you here. There are some functions on the bottom of your phone where you can sort of chime in. You've got a little heart with a plus next to it. You can share emojis there as reactions to the conversation tonight. And then for my friends who are up on the speaker board, on the left is a little microphone button. You want to click that to come off of mute, Zoom style, if you will. And really looking forward to the conversation tonight. So to set the stage, the HB 1557 in the Florida legislature, the Don't Say Gay bill, as we're calling it, has had its viral moment. It is a bill that is fairly short. It's fairly simple. The second portion of the bill would ban discussion of LGBTQ people in classrooms across the state of Florida. And we know what those impacts would be. And so tonight I wanted to talk to my friends here. I know that Chasten put out a tweet that helped us get national attention onto this bill. We've got two incredible lawmakers in the Florida state legislature who are in the trenches fighting these bills in hearings. And then, of course, we have Equality Florida's executive director, Nadine Smith. Really glad to have her helping us to lead the fight on the ground and is going to provide some context to the bills generally. And so I want to dive in. Nadine, I wanted to go to you first because I feel like it's important that we set a big stage for all that's happening. This is just one bill of several, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind sort of pulling us out to 30,000 feet. Tell us what's going on in Florida. People are thinking WTF. Maybe you can help shine a light on that.
Well, absolutely. And I think it really is important to understand that the Don't Say Gay bill, the attack on trans youth, the book banning, the, essentially a ban on abortion by imposing a 15-week deadline, all of these are part of, and please don't let me leave out the Stop Woke bill and the basically a ban on anything talking honestly about racial justice in America that might make any white person uncomfortable. All of these bills are part of the DeSantis surveillance state, legislative slate. It's a divisive and dehumanizing, roster of bills that has the government interfering in our most personal decisions. And it seeks to ban honest conversations about race, about gender identity, about sexual orientation. And it comes because, and I can't stress this enough, because DeSantis and Trump are jockeying for position as to who will be the Republican presidential nominee. And so what you see erupting are more and more public fights between Trump and DeSantis. And this legislation that does nothing to help Floridians with the actual issues that we're confronting. And it is an absolute shout out to the most extreme in the Republican primary base. And we see it even in the DeSantis administration's reaction to Nazis demonstrating and provoking violence in Orlando, where his voice, his press secretary, her instinct is not to condemn Nazis on behalf of the governor, but to immediately put out a tweet that implies that the group waving the Nazi flags and chanting their support for Trump are possibly Democrats. It is all of these things together that we have to, that's the context we all have to understand, because we're not going to defeat this Trumpification, this DeSantis moving to the right of Trump. We're not going to defeat it one bill at a time, one issue at a time. We're going to defeat it by understanding how our fates are tied. Now we have to rise up and speak out against racism, how we have to speak out against these attacks on the LGBTQ community that specifically go after trans kids. We have to understand that the willingness to invade and control and surveil us in every way are part of an agenda that everyone who cares about democracy, believes in freedom, doesn't use it as a fake slogan, but actually believes in it. We have to stand together.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you, setting the stage for us, because while we are going to talk a lot about Florida's Don't Say Gay bill tonight, and I want to turn to my friends on that bill specifically, I think it's really important that we don't lose the forest for the trees here, that these bills are not living in silos. They're not just individual pieces of legislation. They are part of a calculated agenda to help Governor DeSantis's presidential ambitions. And the cost for that is heaped onto our state's most marginalized people. And oftentimes that means LGBTQ young people who so desperately need us to be supporting them, affirming them, uplifting them, celebrating them. They need to be seen in their classrooms and in their environments. And instead, we have lawmakers who are trying to legislate them out of society altogether. So with that, I want to turn to you, Chasten, for a moment. First of all, thank you for helping to shine a light on Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, for helping to pull national focus to what's happening down here in the state of Florida. What I'd love to hear is why you were compelled to speak out on this bill. Your perspective as an educator and as a parent, and why you think the bill, would do so much harm to LGBT young people in our state.
Sure. Well, thanks for hosting this, Brandon. Thanks for everything that you and Equality Florida are doing down there for the community. Thanks for everyone for joining in and listening. I know there are a lot of people listening tonight who do not live in Florida, but I appreciate that you have your eyes on this issue, because as we've seen, it seems like just in the last couple of weeks, a lot of these bills are now getting national attention. There's this new wave of anti-LGBTQ legislation. There's some in Texas and Virginia, in Indiana, Arizona. And it's really important that we're all paying attention. And I think it's easier to pay attention when we're doing it together, and when we're sort of banding together. So I actually reached out to Brandon. I don't know what time is anymore with the twins, so I don't know if that was a few days ago or a week ago, Brandon. But I just read about the bill in the news. Reached out to Brandon and said, "What's going on down here? Can I get a little more information on the bill?" And it stung to read about something like that, not only as just a gay person, but as a new parent and as a teacher. I think people are trying to muddy the arguments around this bill. And the simple, I guess, the sting for me is the thought that if my kid were going to a school in Florida, Ron DeSantis and the House GOP there are saying that the discussion of my family is inappropriate for the classroom. And of course, as we pointed out on television this weekend, when you start telling kids something about them is wrong or something about their family is wrong, even at a young age, even in elementary school, that trauma compounds and it builds and it builds and it builds. That's why we've continuously cited this survey from the Trevor Project about the dire state of mental health amongst young LGBTQ people in this country. I don't think this is what Floridians are asking for. I'm not a Floridian, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that most teachers and families in Florida are not asking for something like this. As a teacher myself, I can think of about 20 things off the top of my head that teachers need help with, and this is not one of them. I think that this is a very, very easy thing to do. I like to call it lazy leadership. You pick a marginalized community, you punch down, you pick on them. It gets flashy in the news. People pay attention to how mean you're being. And of course, now everyone's talking about how mean Ron DeSantis is. And I think he sees that as a bonus. He sees that as a plus because I don't want to get into too much punditry, but I think we all understand why he's doing that. And the LGBTQ community has been used as a scapegoat, throughout history. And I think it's really simple. I think when we boil it down to what's stated in the bill says that the discussions of our families, our community is inappropriate for the classroom. I loved my conversation with Jonathan Capehart on Sunday. We pointed out that most of us grew up reading books only about straight people. We were taught by straight people. We grew up in homes with only straight people. I know for me, growing up in northern Michigan, I was definitely taught and told that gay people were reprehensible, that there was something about them that was wrong, was twisted. I went to CCD as a young Catholic kid and was told that gay people were going to hell. So for 18 years, I only grew up knowing that thing inside me that made me different was bad. And it's really traumatic when kids grow up in an environment like that. And so I think if this is truly, if this is about parents' rights, I want to ask, which parents? It seems like this is a straight parents' rights bill, and it just, I think it seeks to erase all of us, erase discussions about us, our families, and as a new parent, I'm just thinking about my kids and the world I want them to grow up in, and I definitely want them to be in a classroom where they themselves are affirmed that it's okay to talk about their dads, and we're making sure that this world is a safer place for LGBTQ youth and not harder. So I'm going to continue fighting alongside you, Brandon, do what I can to help out down there and across the country, because I think things like this are just absolutely reprehensible. And again, it's just lazy. It does nothing for the people of Florida. It does nothing for families. It actually does nothing for kids except inflict harm. And it's not what we should be focusing on.
I really appreciate that. And I just want to say, I was a young person, just the same as you were, in a community that didn't really value all of me, didn't value me being LGBTQ, didn't value many times me being a person of color. And it also meant that, to your point, I didn't see myself represented in curriculum. I didn't see myself represented in school staff or, teachers or administrators. And that really held me back, right? I could have been, so much more confident and known who I was at an earlier age, if I had felt represented and celebrated by my community. And that's at the core of what we're talking about here. So just really appreciate your perspective and all that you've done on this issue. And I want to turn now to our representatives, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith here in Orlando and Representative Michelle Rayner down in St. Pete. We're so grateful to have you both. I'll let you fight over who wants to go first, but I wonder if you can get a little in the weeds with us policy-wise. Talk to us about, the bill itself and where you see holes in it. And then, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about where it fits in the broader landscape of bills.
Representative Rayner, you go first.
So thanks. I was going to be like, you could go first. Well, thank you so much. First off, Brandon and Equality Florida, and of course the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Nadine Smith, for just the incredible work that you do here in Florida and for paving ways for so many of us, even when we don't know that we will need you, that you are always working on our behalf. So we are eternally grateful. And Nadine, we owe you a debt that can never be repaid. But with that being said, I will say, where did we start? And I'm not going to cuss on this thing because these bills make me want to cuss. Last year, I cried on the floor about what we were doing to our trans babies. And now I'm just really mad. I'm pissed. And so really, there's so many holes with this bill. And I want to kind of level set the conversation. And many folks who have been involved in the process in Florida will know that Florida is usually like the test state for these harmful bills. Like when we think about stand your ground, like Florida was the test state for stand your ground, right? Like if this can get through in Florida, this can get through in other states. So I think in a lot of ways for these harmful, homophobic, transphobic, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Black, anti-Jewish, the othering that, we see the GOP doing. Florida has really, along with Texas, has really been the test cases for these bills. And so I think that to level set with that, and then also to understand that these bills aren't really standalone bills. Nadine mentioned in the beginning, these are part and parcel of this cadre of bills that have come together. The Stop Woke bill, the medical conscience bill, which says that if a medical or healthcare provider has a conscious objection to a procedure, that they don't have to do that procedure. And my dear friend and brother Rep. Smith pointed out in committee, like this could actually be like you have an objection to who I am, right? As a person, as a gay person, as a Black person, you have a just objection to who I am. And so what we're seeing with these bills and what I see, and many of y'all who don't know, my background is I'm a lawyer. So I see that these bills are purposefully vague and purposely ambiguous. And I think that they're purposely vague and purposely ambiguous for several reasons. One, I think, is that it is to trigger a lawsuit, right? We have a very conservative Supreme Court. Some of the appellate courts before you get to the Supreme Courts here in Florida, the Supreme Court here in Florida are very conservative. So I think that it's purposely vague and purposely ambiguous to trigger a lawsuit. So then many of these Ron DeSantis appointees who sit on the bench will begin to interpret laws in ways that are harmful to LGBTQ folks. And so I think that that's really part of the strategy. And also, when I think about vagueness, like part of the bill says that you will not encourage conversation. And so what does encourage mean? That is not defined in this bill. Is encourage a child bringing in a picture of their family? Or I think about me and my wife, we have godchildren. What if our godchildren bring in a picture of us? We took them to Disney or whatever. And, these are my godmommies. Like, is this encouraging? Or is this, as a student saying that I think that I'm different and I don't know what that means, and talking to a trusted teacher. And so I think that the whole basis of this is to really not only be harmful, because we understand that cruelty is the point, but then to really trigger lawsuits that actually in statute will, and actually in law will have really discriminatory effects because of the justice that we have. And I will tell you this, if y'all don't believe me, we have a judge that is on the second DCA. His name is Judge Stargell. He's married to Kelly Stargell. Kelly Stargell is actually the senator who is running the abortion ban bill in the Senate. She also ran the anti-trans children's bill. That's what I call it. The anti-letting kids play bill in the Senate last year. Her husband just recently, with regard to a young woman wanting to have an abortion to obtain a judicial bypass, literally wrote a dissent that basically said she can't get an abortion because I don't think that she's intelligent enough because she misspelled words. So all of this is strategic. It's not just we woke up one day and this happened. All of this is a part of a bigger plan. And I think that they are, Republicans, especially here in Florida, are counting on folks not being like awake, for lack of a better word, to really see like what's happening.
Thank you. Thank you for putting it all together. I appreciate getting your insight as an attorney as well. Obviously, we know that these bills do pop up to challenge the court system, to challenge some of these statutes. It's a long game, right? And Rep. Smith, I want to get from you as well, because I know that you have been on some of these committees. You're watching this happen in real time, and I wonder your take on the Don't Say Gay bill, and sort of the larger landscape.
Sure. Thank you, Brandon. Well, here's the thing. Why are we even calling that bill the Don't Say Gay bill? Well, we call it that because it will effectively erase LGBT students, families, and even history by banning this classroom discussion about anything gay or anything trans in K-5. And then for middle and high school, it's basically saying that if someone thinks talking about LGBTQ people is not age appropriate, the bill encourages them to sue the school. So let's think about that for a second. For all the homophobes and transphobes who are out there, do they think any conversation about LGBTQ people is age appropriate? No, they don't think any of it's age appropriate. So we're basically going to encourage Floridians to turn against one another in this way. So it's going to do is it's going to have a chilling impact on our school district's inclusive policies that support LGBTQ youth, who, Chasten has, just very beautifully just kind of explained in so many of his interviews why these programs, why these inclusive policies that provide inclusive and positive educational environments for LGBTQ youth are so important, because we know LGBTQ youth are often vulnerable. We know, based on the Trevor Project's recent survey for those students who felt comfortable enough to actually answer the questions, 42% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered suicide. Bills like this will push these kids back into the closet. But even more dangerously, it implies that if you can't have the conversation, it implies that a conversation about LGBTQ people is somehow dangerous or inappropriate. LGBT Floridians like myself and others, we are a normal and healthy part of any society or any school. Conversations about who we are and what our families look like, they're not dangerous. And suggesting that they are, it just sends this terrible message. And what's so frustrating with bills like this is they always want to couch their opposition to talking about the LGBTQ community or just acknowledging their mere existence. They couch it in this sex ed conversation space. These are not sex ed conversations, okay? Conversations that simply acknowledge the existence of our families, The fact that a fourth grader has two moms or two dads, and that LGBT families are part of our community, those conversations are always age appropriate, and they don't have anything to do with sex education. And I also think it's really important, and Brandon, I know you will appreciate this, given your experience being a survivor of the horrific tragedy at Pulse nightclub. I represent a district in East Orlando. 49 mostly LGBTQ people of color were murdered at Pulse nightclub almost 6 years ago. And some of their descendants, their nieces, their nephews, their family members, their children in our schools. And some of those kids still have memories of those who were taken from us at Pulse. And learning about what happened to their loved ones, it's a conversation that's inextricably linked to conversations about sexual orientation and gender identity, which are discouraged in this bill. And I just think that it's so important to bring that aspect of it, because it's really going to scare school districts and teachers away from having any of these conversations at all, and it will push us all back into the closet.
I really appreciate you, and I see you, Nadine, and I want to get you in here next. What I really appreciate is you tying it to how important it is that we are a part of the fabric of society. I think about my best friends who I lost that night at Pulse, and I think about all of the memories that we had, the best parts of them, right? They were the best of us. They were joyful, they were caring, they were loving. They brought pieces of our community together. They had a knack for making people laugh even on their worst days. And the idea that talking about them, their lives, their legacies, the beautiful mark that they left behind, the idea that talking about them would be considered inappropriate is deeply offensive to me. We should be talking about the lives and legacies of those who've been taken too soon. We should be talking about LGBTQ people as a normal, healthy part of society, because we have contributions to share. And ultimately, it comes down to, what you and Chasten have both said, which is that young people's lives are at stake. That's what's actually at stake. I get it. There are politicians like Governor DeSantis and others who just desperately want the next job. They really like the pin on their lapel. They really like the plaque on their desk. And they're desperately searching for that on-ramp to beat Donald Trump to the right and get on to the next thing. But we're talking about the lives of young people who right now, if we don't affirm them and celebrate them and give them a place to be that really matters, are at risk. And I just, sorry to get on a rant there, but I wanted to just appreciate you for bringing us back to earth on this, which is, they may just be pieces of paper in Tallahassee to someone, but they're not that to young people. They're not that to LGBTQ people in this state. We deserve to be seen. We deserve to be acknowledged. We deserve to be celebrated. My best friends deserve to have their lives and legacies celebrated. And I appreciate you bringing us back to that. Nadine, I don't know if you had something to share. I see Michelle's hand up too.
Oh, I didn't know my hand goes up. I was just going off mute, but I do have a couple of things that I want to underscore, especially if you're not from Florida. And Rep. Rayner brought this up, but people have to understand that when we say this is orchestrated, we literally mean there's a right-wing think tank that has told Republican lawmakers that the way you get reelected is you tee off on trans kids and you say critical race theory at the top of your lungs every chance you get. And so in those think tanks, they manufacture these cookie cutter bills that get introduced all around. So last year when we were dealing with the ban that said trans kids can't play sports, and you would say, well, why are you bringing this bill forward? What incident has provoked this? They couldn't mention anything in the state of Florida because the reality was it had nothing to do. In fact, there were guidelines over a decade old. The same guidelines that let Jazz Jennings play soccer were still in force, doing what they were supposed to do to allow trans kids to play. and to ensure fairness and equitability for everybody. These bills aren't rooted in anything that's actually happening. It is all rooted in political strategy and what they're counting on. The vagueness is absolutely in order to open the door for the expansion of these beyond what they say in committee. But it's also intended to have a chilling effect. We are already seeing books being banned, books by Black authors, books by LGBTQ authors. In one school district, a right-wing school board member called the police because of an LGBT book in the library. Part of the bill that was heard today around, that opens the door to book banning, basically lets anybody challenge the existence of a book in a school, and any book that's challenged gets on a list that the state will send to every school district. Now, it doesn't tell them to ban those books, but the chilling effect when Tallahassee holds the purse strings and you're seeing them punish school boards by, seeking to remove pay for school board members, all of these things are intended to send the message that directly or indirectly, we will compel you to do what we want you to do. And we have to work really hard against the normalization of that. And the final piece that I think we don't say often enough, and we should when we're talking about LGBTQ young people, the reason they are at great risk, the reason they are overwhelmingly overrepresented among homeless youth is because oftentimes they are tossed out or flee violent, dangerous situations. They are isolated. They're not inherently more likely to commit suicide. They are put in circumstances of such stress, animosity, hatred, ostracization from the people who are supposed to protect you the most, that anybody under those same circumstances would respond in the same way. And so what is so painful, and I say this as a parent of a child in school in Florida right now, I have a 10-year-old son, the message that they send in subtle ways and overt ways is that we are resurrecting Anita Bryant's ghost, and we are going to deliver the message in every way we can that you don't belong here. Your family doesn't belong here. And you shouldn't exist. If you do exist, you better hide. And if you don't hide successfully, we're going to make life hell for you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Nadine. And I appreciate you sharing, that this perspective comes not just as the leader of the state's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization, but also as a parent, right? Someone who has a child in school and knows the real impacts, not just the talking points, not just the rhetoric, not just the stuff that you see on CNN or MSNBC, but the real things that are happening day in and day out for our young people. It's heartbreaking to me. So I appreciate that. I know Rep Rayner, you had your hand up for a moment.
Yes, I wanted to just also kind of highlight this, and anyone who knows me on this Twitter space knows I have to do this. I think we need to talk about the intersectionality of children of color, specifically Black kids, and who identify as LGBTQ, and kind of the dualistic attack that is on them. And we know the statistics about Black trans women, and the life expectancy that they have. And we also understand about, even in communities of color, whether Black, Hispanic, or Asian communities, how we are still kind of coming to terms with, folks who are LGBTQ who have been in the communities forever. I mean, there are organizations, not only like Equality Florida, but National Black Justice Coalition and so forth and so on, that really have an emphasis on that. And so I think about these children who, and I remember, being young and knowing at 11 that something was different. I was queer, but I had family members that say, I would rather you be in jail than be gay, right? So you get this at home. And then you go to school and then you're trying to figure out where I can fit. And your teacher can't even have a conversation with you because then your teacher has to tell you, has to maybe then tell your parents. And then you're also then Black. And so you're also being told by a society that we also really don't want you here and you also really don't fit. And so then you think about these young babies like Nigel Shelby, who, in Alabama tragically killed himself because he was bullied because, he was gay, and then also the issues of race. And so when we're thinking about even how these bills will affect, I can't help but think about how these bills will affect the most marginalized among us, children who may not have access to parents, like when myself and Bianca become parents. Like, our kids we could kind of maybe, kind of shelter in a way, but what about kids that don't have that? What about kids who don't have parents who are going to be advocates for them? And so I think about the incredible harm that this is not only going to do for all kids, but especially the children that are at the intersection of race and their identity and sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that deeply as a person living at those intersections. I know just how tough it is, and the fact that we would have leaders making it tougher is unconscionable, to be quite frank. Okay, so I am figuring out how to do this. I saw that Eli had a question, and so I invited Eli up. Do you have a question for the group?
Yeah, hi. It's such a privilege to just be able to ask anything. You guys are so incredible. My name's Eli. I went to school in Florida from K through 12. And so you can understand that from, my perspective, how scary this is. I just had a question. I actually had a chance of speaking with the sponsor of the bill, Joe Harding. I was wondering if Equality Florida had reached out to these senators who are sponsoring this bill, HB 1557. And I was wondering if there was any discussion about ways to amend it where these lines would not be part of the bill. That was just my question.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being my first attempt at welcoming someone else on stage as well. And I am going to leave that to Nadine probably to answer first, and then I'll pass it to Representative Smith or Rayner if you have some more insight.
Sure. The quick answer is yes. Our public policy director has met with Representative Harding, has talked at great length, has met with everyone, Republicans on the committees that the bill has traveled to and will travel to. And I hope that progress has been made. There seems to be some growing awareness. You have to understand, however, the reason that I place these in context is to understand that the origin of these bills is not, no matter how naive people pretend to be about the origin of these bills, they are a political maneuver. They are not responding to things happening in the real world, or they wouldn't be drafted and crafted in the way that they are. And in the Senate sponsor of this bill is one of the most notoriously anti-LGBT senators, in Florida, period. So those are the realities that we are dealing with. Those are it's sort of like if you were going to have this bill and you were addressing a real concern and you wanted to do it in some good faith way, you would expect that a legislator would reach out to the impacted communities, would talk to the Parent-Teacher Association, would talk to LGBT organizations like Equality Florida and others, and say, hey, here's this issue that's come up, and I'm trying to address it, and I want to do it in the best way possible. None of that happened. If you watch the hearing, you see the PTA going, this isn't about parental rights. We support parental rights. This is bigotry being done under the guise of parental rights. There was certainly no outreach to any LGBT organizations to address any real concern. And so to feign shock at our outrage is just disingenuous. I hope that enough pressure has built. I hope there are enough Republicans to push back and make some changes, but understand that the origin of this, the reason it exists to begin with, was never a legitimate purpose.
And thank you, Nadine. And I just want to jump in too, because the question, which is a great question, is about, is there anything that can be fixed in the bill? Can the bill be amended in a way that makes it better? You know, there's problems with the bill that go beyond this language. This section of the bill, it's a couple sentences long, that says that schools can't encourage conversations about sexual orientation and gender identity. But that just that section of the bill, which singles us out, which excludes our community as basically taboo. It basically goes out of its way to say, well, you know, you can't have conversations, you can't encourage conversations about sexual orientation or gender identity. Well, it doesn't say that you can't encourage conversations about race. It doesn't say that you can't encourage conversations about national origin or ethnicity or sex. It singles us out, which sends the message, like I said before, that there's something dangerous about a conversation about us. I can't figure out how to fix that language other than to remove it, delete it, and abandon the bill. So that's the way that I look at this legislation in particular, and I can't make a declaration either way, but I know that that section of the bill can't be improved unless it's removed.
I love that. Cannot be improved unless it's removed. I'm co-sign because again, it's pretty clear. It's not a mistake what's in the bill. It's very clear and very direct. I know that we're coming up on 45 minutes. I also know that Representative Smith has a date with Rachel Maddow, my queen. And so I don't want to keep folks forever. Chasten, you know, there's a lot of folks who are on tonight who are not from Florida. Many folks who are supporters of you and are proud of you and excited about your new family. I wonder if you have thoughts on how you'd like to see those folks engage, those who are not in Florida.
Absolutely. Step one is paying attention. If you're in this chat, that means you're paying attention. And then it's our job to make sure that the people around us are paying attention. And especially if you're on this call and you're straight, you need to get your straight counterpart board for sticking up for the LGBTQ community, because as a lot of people on this call can tell you, it is really exhausting when you feel like it's just you sticking up for your community. This isn't a parents' rights bill. And you care about the LGBTQ community, then you'll make sure that you're keeping an eye not only on what's happening in Florida, but what's happening in your state. At the top of the call, bills like this are popping up left and right. One of my questions is, I would love to see some of the testimonies that some of these senators or representatives of people reaching out and saying, we have to get this passed in Tallahassee. The most important thing for families. It just doesn't exist. As was mentioned earlier, I think that the hatred and the bigotry is the point. And this is happening all over the country. It didn't go away. People are just paying attention. People are paying attention because some of us tweet and go on the news, but it's also really important that people pay attention because you're talking about it in your community and you're making sure that people keep their eyes on it. Please keep speaking up, paying attention, and reaching out. There are people like Brandon, there are people like Florida, in your state too. There are organizations on the ground. Make sure you reach out and find them, connect with them, and ask them how you can help. Florida care about. So make sure in your state as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for being so dialed in. It was great to hear you, to have you reach out and ask how you could help. That's what I would encourage folks to start with is reach out and figure out, what organizations are doing the work here on the ground. Obviously, Equality Florida is one, and then see how you can help. Representatives Smith, Rayner, before we leave, I just wanted to check in and see if you also have marching orders for folks. How can folks get engaged? What do you want to see from everyone? We've had just over 250 people on for most of our time together, and what would you have to say to those 250 people about how they can get engaged?
Well, thank you for helping us, is what I would say. Thank you for being a part of this discussion. And folks often ask the same thing: what can we do? How can we get involved? I would look to organizations like Equality Florida, who actually will help streamline what the marching orders are for the rest of session. And it's not just on opposition to the Don't Say Gay bill. It's on a lot of these other bills that obviously are all part of this current environment that we're in, where we're moving Florida into this surveillance state, and we're taking people's freedoms away. Free states do not censor discussions and conversations in our schools. But if you want something more specific on what you can do as far as reaching out to your state representatives and senators, if you live in the state of Florida, is go to myfloridahouse.gov or flsenate.gov so that you can find out which lawmakers are on these committees hearing these bills, and you can reach out to them. You can reach out to them and you can encourage them to please oppose them.
I'm going to take a little bit more of a personal approach. I agree with everything my colleague said, but as I always tell people, and to Chasten's point, it gets a little bit of a little exhausting, kind of like being the teacher of like Black America, LGBTQ America to folks, right? So what I tell people, especially if you're straight on this call, like when you're at dinner with your friends, when you're at dinner with your parents, when your uncle says that like homophobic or transphobic thing, like it's that moment, like you stop that moment. I can't stop them and tell them it's that moment when you're like, even if it feels ucky or gross, even if you feel scared, it is that moment you stop them and say, listen, we can't do this, and then engage in a conversation. Because a lot of this, what we're seeing is that it starts at homes. It starts in homes. It starts at dinner tables. It starts with folks around them. And so my charge to you, yes, like I think that there's always the political organizing. I believe in that. That's what I started my career in. But it's really challenging the people in our lives that are holding these beliefs and really interrogating not only their beliefs, but our own biases, our own beliefs, especially if you're straight, even if you're LGBTQ. I mean, I've had folks who are gay men who tell me, oh, I can't deal with trans people. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, let's have that conversation. Like, you're not just going to say that and move on. And so I think that we also have to do the work. We also have to be the first folks to stop it before it even gets to the political rung. And so I'm not saying that's going to work every time, but I am saying the more that we open our mouths, the more that we say that this is not okay, and not just on Twitter and not just on Facebook, but in those personal, private conversations. That's I also believe that where we can see that you can move the needle as well.
I could not agree more. Just a quick personal aside, my family is very conservative. My parents, are supporters of the former president. And you can imagine that Thanksgiving dinner time can have some challenging conversations. But even in those environments, even in those climates, Representative Rayner, I take that to heart, that is my time to show up because we care about each other, right? I think Nadine has said this before. We stop being able to have conversations when we don't believe that someone else is worth having the conversation with. So I know that that's my time at that dinner table with those people who love me for who I am. May have taken us a long time to get there, but those people who love me for who I am, that is my opportunity to disrupt, to ask tough questions, to have hard conversations, because we care about one another enough to have those conversations. Nadine, just wanted to pass it to you before we close it out. How can people get engaged specifically here in Florida and with Equality Florida?
I'm so glad you asked. I would say a couple of things. Follow us on Twitter. You've got all of our handles here, and we have a lobby day coming up. We're going to be the Equality Florida Lobby Day in person is February 7th and 8th in Tallahassee. If you come to the Capitol and make your presence felt, it matters so much. The Capitol is so far away from the population centers that when you make that trip there, the impact of it is more than just one person showing up. So if you can physically make it there, please do. And if you can't, we also have virtual lobby days, February 9th through the 11th. And I just posted on my Twitter feed the link that you can use to RSVP. But this is an all hands on deck moment. And I agree with everyone. You've got to raise your voice in those spaces where your sphere of influence, the ripples from what you do, reach people that are never going to tune into this kind of Twitter or aren't following any organizations are doing, aren't paying attention to what happens in Tallahassee. But if you talk to them, if you post it on your Twitter feed, your TikTok feed, wherever you are in social media, you are going to reach people who might not otherwise hear of this any other way, and we need you to. There has been a normalization of cruelty, a normalization of bullying that has been allowed to swagger through our state, through our country. And to stop that, it means stopping bad legislation. But just as importantly, it means challenging it wherever we see it, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it makes you nervous, even if your voice shakes. We've got to be the voice for the people who are going to bear the brunt of all of these bills. So I'm so grateful to everybody for tuning in, and I hope to see you at Lobby Day, either in person or virtually.
I appreciate that. Nadine, you always leave me inspired. Thank you for that. I do just want to say that you brought up TikTok specifically because in my new role that I've been in for about 3 weeks, I have helped to launch a TikTok for Equality Florida. So I feel like this TikTok thing is haunting me. I'm very hip. I figured it out. But I appreciate you shouting out lobby days where people can go to get involved in person. Virtual lobby days. I'm going to also drill down on, please follow us on social media. Equality Florida is in the room right now. It's at Equality FL. I would encourage everyone to follow us. We try to keep you updated. There are hearings this week on the bills that we've talked about. And so we're going to need folks to stay engaged and then have the tough conversations. I get it. I see the comment threads. I see the memes where people want to saw off Florida and send us off into the ocean. But we're a beautiful state full of rich diversity with incredible cities and beaches and wonderful communities and a lot to offer. And there are real people that are hurting under this legislative agenda. Under this governor's presidential ambitions, there are people whose lives are at risk. And so I'm asking everyone, instead of sawing us off and sending us into the ocean, fight with us. Do whatever you can. Have that tough conversation with someone you know and love. Join us at Equality Florida. Get on a virtual lobby day and talk to a lawmaker. Make phone calls. Send emails. Right now is the time for us to engage. We can't wait until it shows up on your doorstep. You can't wait until it shows up in your classroom. Right now is the time for us to fight together. And I'm hoping that you will join that fight with us. So I want to thank all of the panelists tonight. Thank you, Chasten, for reaching out and being willing to jump on this thing with us. Thank you to Representatives Smith and Rayner. I know that you're very busy and you've got a brutal week ahead in Tallahassee. And of course, thank you to our Executive Director, Nadine Smith, for being here, providing us that 30,000-foot view and getting everyone engaged with Equality Florida. We appreciate you all. Thank you for spending some time with us on a Monday night. Let's do this thing together.